name's Ryan Sullivan. His name's Andrew Wadden. Andrew, what are we starting with this week?
Oh, Ryan, this week we're starting with streaks.
Oh, streaks. Have I got a story for you? I'm at this party. This guy dares me to go streaking, right? It's a little cold outside.
Hold on. No. Streaks, not streaking.
I'd never streaked.
The Guelph Griffins know how to protect their house. They haven't lost a game at Alumni Stadium since October 22nd, 2011. As a matter of fact, they haven't lost at home to the Western Mustangs since the 2010 season. However, these Stangs, well, they got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, you see, after losing to Mac just 2 weeks ago. With a bye to the Yates Cup semifinal on the line, can the Purple Ponies snap the Griffins' dominance at home? Well, let's find out.
So let's get to that big game, shall we? A nice crowd at Alumni Stadium for this one. Will Finch back after missing last week's tilt with Laurier facing off against Jazz Lindsay. Griffins scratched the scoreboard early. Lindsay to Lucas Spagnolo. He gets taken down at the 2. That led to a touchdown. Guelph take the early lead. Second Q, Griffins up 10-6 until Will Finch hits Adam Sinclair with his 15-yard major. Purple Ponies back out in front. A few minutes later, they build on that lead. Finch to Shaquille Johnson. Hit the Staples button. That's too easy. Western up by 10. Last minute of the first half, Lindsay with an empty backfield connects with Alex Charette. Guelph cuts the deficit to just 3. After stopping the Stangs on 3rd and short, Daniel Ferrero nailed this 41-yarder at the end of the half. We're all locked up at 23 apiece at the beer break. Shift to the last minute of the 4th. Guelph down 8 on the Western doorstep. Lindsay to Charette. The pink flags hit the checkered end zone. PI is called. So they line up on the goal line. Lindsay fakes the handoff. Fires to Matthew Toppin. Griffins down 2. So they go for the 2 points. Lindsay to Charette. We got a tie ball game. Guelph's D would get them one more possession. They get it to the 41 and Ferrero steps up for the win. Nailed it. Griffins stun the number 4 ranked team in the nation, edging the Purple Ponies by 3. With the win, the Griffins earn a bye and will play host to a Yates Cup semifinal. Lindsay set a single-game school record, passing for 514 yards. Guelph's home winning streak at Alumni is now at 14 games.
Windsor visiting Carleton, opening Q, and Austin Kennedy find Bo Lumley deep. That's a 43-yard connection. It's 9-3 for the Lancers. Then off a blocked punt, Nate Bahar says, "Thank you very much." The crowd at Keith Harris loving every minute of it. That's a good-looking crowd right there. Fast forward to the 3rd, and Javari Bennett takes over. He slips off 3 guys. He finds daylight. He goes 75 yards all the way to the house. He would get knocked over in the celebration, but that doesn't matter. 21-18 the final score for the Ravens. It was a sellout crowd at Keith Harris Stadium to take in that Ravens win. They now improve to 4-3 in the OUA and are officially in my top 5 for best alternate unis in the CIS.
Laurier hit the road at Ron Joyce. Kick this off with a stellar run from CIS rushing leader Dylan Campbell. DC takes the pigskin into the MAC red zone, where the Hoff, Greg Nyhoff, caps off the drive with this 12-yard major from James Fracas. Golden Hawks up 7 Cobb. Second Q and the score 7-3 G-Hawks. Fracas steps back and fires, but the only problem is there's 3 Marauders and just 1 Golden Hawk in the vicinity. Steve Ventresca comes down with the leather and takes it 61 yards deep into the Laurier zone, but Mac could only muster a field goal out of it. Midway through the quarter, the Marauders take the lead. Marshall Ferguson hits Danny Vandervoort, and the clutch Dutch does what he does best, takes it 48 yards all the way to Bakakenvoel. That's pay dirt in Dutch, in case you were wondering. Third Q, Ferguson has his boys back in the G-Hawk zone, and he makes them pay. That's a 6-yard strike to Dallin Brooks. Fourth Q, and a little CIS history is made.
Snap was on, hold was on, kick is up, kick is good!
Just like that.
Your new CIS record holder for field goals, it's Tyler Crapina.
Tyler Capina sets a CIS record with his 83rd career field goal. The previous record was held by this guy, former Sherbrooke kicker William Dion, who may have lost his record, but his dance moves will forever live in the record books. What was that anyway? Gangnam Style? With the win, the Marauders lock up first place in the conference and will play host to a Yates Cup semifinal.
Queens hosting York. You can always expect a fine pregame show at Richardson Stadium. The bagpipes were ripping. So was Alex Carroll. Quick, switch to the blimp cam. He takes this one 84 yards all the way to the house. It's now 7-blank for the hometown Gales. York would score its first major of the season. Joey Ricatone bringing in this one from 17 yards from Jamari Bennett. That'd pretty much be it for the Lions, though. Alex Carroll with another major here. This made it 38-7. Queens would cruise to a 57-10 win. Alex Carroll had 3 touchdowns and over 200 yards receiving on the day. As for York, well, they were Yorking it up once again. They fall to 0-7.
Waterloo, Toronto. Here you see the first of Blues running back Lucas Gavik's 2 touchdowns on the day. Fourth-year receiver Boris Isaacov also tallied 2 majors for the Blues. Toronto wrap up their season with a 48-point win over the Warriors. Blues pivot Simon Nasser finished the season with over 2,200 passing yards. After making the postseason last year, the Blues finished this season on the outside, looking in.
All right, let's take a look at your OUA standings now. McMaster, they are perfect 7-0 in first place. Guelph now has sole possession of second place at 6-1, followed by Western, Windsor, Laurier, Ottawa, Carleton, Queens, Toronto, and the winless York Lions and Waterloo Warriors.
'Twas a tale of 2 coaches. Given the circumstances, a loss would pretty much guarantee a missing of the playoffs for both of these squads. Thing is, Regina Rams bench boss Frank McChrystal already announced he was stepping down prior to the season, win or lose. UBC head coach Sean Olsen doesn't have the same agenda, and with a loss, it likely wouldn't be his choice to step aside. So, would the Reginans win one for the Gipper, or would the birds fly again for at least another week or 2? Let's find parking near Wreck Beach and find out.
Point Grey, British Columbia, the setting, the sun just starting to peek out in the afternoon on Thunderbird Stadium. It was shining bright for UBC early. The highlight reel himself, Marcus Davis, out of the Wildcat, finds a hole, shakes a man, takes this one for 30 yards into the red zone where UBC would capitalize. Nico Jacobs with an acrobatic grab, and it's 7-0 for the hometown T-Birds. Regina would knot it up, but Marcus Davis would then put his hands to work, bringing this one down from 37 yards out. The kid does it again, and UBC restores their lead. Andrew Fabian would miss this 30-yarder. They'd settle for the single point. Remember this miss, though. Easy points definitely missed out on by the Rams. With UBC up 6, Landon Bush would track this one in from 1 yard out on 3rd down. Not all of the refs agreed, but they'd given the touchdown anyhow. Then following a single, Quinn Van Gilswick kills this ball. A 60-yard punt, and Regina cannot get it out of their end zone, meaning they'd surrender another single, and they would need to keep their next drive alive. Cayman Shutter gets shut down. Chris Adams with the swat. Frank McChrystal knows that's likely it for his Regina Rams. 33-32, the final for UBC. The T-Birds win in the most Canadian way possible with the Rouge. Their slim playoff hopes are still alive as they head to Calgary next, while Regina has to win out and keep their fingers crossed with their next 2 games against Manitoba and Alberta.
Huskies on the road in Winnipeg. It was a chilly night at Investors Group Field. All 3 of the Bison's wins coming at home this year. Kick things off in the second Q. Bison's in the Huskies' red zone. Jordan Yance fires to Matt Sawyer. The modern-day Warrior puts the herd in front. Next series for the Brownies, deep in the Sasky zone again. Yance calls his own number. That made it 14-1. The good news for Manitoba, they would win the game, but they would lose Jordan Yance midway through the second Q after taking a late hit to the head. His status is questionable for the Bison's upcoming game in Regina. With the win, the Bisons maintain in a playoff position in the conference. The Manitoba offense was stellar on the day, putting up 41 points, but the Herd's D was rumbling, allowing just 200 yards of total offense for the Huskies, including just 49 yards on the ground.
Calgary visiting Alberta. The Golden Bears have been playing some solid football as of late. Big thanks to their defense, and they come up big here, forcing a pick out of Andrew Buckley. Brandon Foster coming down with the football. GBs would turn that into 3 to make it 9-5. Quinton Chown would turn the tide right back, though. He takes this one for a ton of yards, 51 to be exact. It would lead to a major to make it 12-9 for Calgary. Back the other way, Curtis dealt with a handoff to Jimmy Ralph, who plays quarterback now, and finds Tyler Henry. He makes it 16-12 at the back of the end zone. The Dinos would take over after that, though. Buckley looks and finds Brett Blasco, who brings it down off the tip. They'd add many more. 52-37, your final for the Dinos. With the loss and the UBC win, Alberta needs at least one more W to secure a spot in the postseason, while Calgary needs at least one more win to secure home field throughout the conference playoffs.
So the Canada West playoff picture continues to look murky. The Dinos now alone at 5-1, while Saskatchewan can seal the second spot with a win over Alberta and a Manitoba loss to Regina. UBC remains in the picture, but will need to win at least one of its final 2 games to keep hope alive. Regina is technically still alive, clinging to life support though. The Rams will need to win both of their final games, plus get a little help from the rest of the conference to get in.
Mount Allison took to the road to face off against the Acadia Axemen in what was a meaningless game for the Mounties. UC, MTA has already punched its ticket to the Loney Bowl final. No sense for the Mounties to even play this game, right? Well, at 6-0 on the year, the Mountie Pride wanted its team to keep that unblemished record intact and go unbeaten for the first time in the modern era.
So let's see if that unbeaten record can stay intact. The beautiful campus of the University of Acadia is where things went down. The 2 head coaches with a little pre-game sportsmanship picked this up in the second Q. MTA up by 2. That was until Chris Reed found his way into the end zone. Not sure if you noticed that stat that was on the board. The Mounties closing in on a red zone completion close to 90%. No wonder they're the class of the conference. Third Q now, and the Mounties start to take control. Michael Bohan fields this punt from his own 43, looks to the sideline, and he gone. Bohan finds some room inside and just about takes it all the way. That led to a touchdown and extended the Mounties lead to 13. Fourth Q now, Mounties put this one to bed. Brandon Lay goes to the air, and Roderick Joseph comes down with it. Mount Allison remains perfect with a 28-point win over the Axemen. To say this has been a dream season for the Mounties would be an understatement. MTA's defense has been godlike this year, allowing their opponents just 7.7 points per game, while the offense, as mentioned earlier, has a red zone completion percentage of 86. Absolute dominance.
Over 1,200 were on hand to watch the absolute demolition of SMU. 36-6, the final for the X-Men. St. Mary's now falls to a brutal 0-7, while the X-Men sit comfortably in second at 4-3.
The playoff picture is now entirely set in the AUS. Mount Allison will host the Loney Bowl. The Mounties will face the winner of Acadia and St. FX. The X-Men will host that game after beating SMU in Acadia's loss over the weekend.
Bishops and Laval. You see, this is the part of the show where we give you a little preview of the game you're about to see. I feel, though, all I really need to say is Bishops and Laval. Bishops and Laval. My voice cracked. It wasn't pretty.
Let's head to Pep's. The biteless Gators looking for anything. Seriously, they'd take anything against Laval. They would not get much. This little dump pass goes to Maxime Boutin. He takes it 103 yards to the house, setting a new Laval record for longest pass and catch transaction. Hugo Richard would finish the day with a few more vinyls of his own as well. 506 passing yards, that's a Laval record. 7 touchdowns, that's a Laval and RSEQ record. The team would also improve 2 of their own CIS records as well. Consecutive wins with 24 and number of wins at home with 69. This one was never in doubt. The Rouge et Or win 64-3. Bishops won't have too much time to lick their wounds. They face Montreal next. Meanwhile, Laval's killing spree will continue next week when they head to McGill to take on the winless Redmen.
Sherbrooke McGill. Early first Q in the Vert et Or get running. David Dumas-Goulet cracks off this huge game. 51 Verge is the pickup. Very next play, Jeremy Rock on play action to Guillaume Racine Tessier. That makes it 9-0 for the green and gold. Third Q now, Rock goes airborne for Guillaume Paquet. Paquet makes the grab, draped by the McGill defender. Rock takes a shot himself, but shows no pain. Sherbrooke knocks the Redmen out of the park, smacking them by 45. With the win, the Vert et Or improved to 500. Pivotal game coming up versus Concordia. A win by 7 or more will put Sherbrooke into the 3rd spot in the conference.
All right, let's take a look at your RSEQ standings now. Laval, they are in first place, no question, 6-0, followed by Montreal, Concordia, Sherbrooke, Bishops, and McGill.
All right, I want to go back a sec to another conference, the OUA, that Guelph Griffin streak.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal, isn't it?
It is. We were getting into a little streaking conversation, and you didn't take part.
No. I don't know
It's
anything
interesting
about
because-
any streaking whatsoever. You were trying to tell me a story about your streaking.
But it's on the Krown Countdown U, at Krown Countdown U Twitter. I can see a lot of you.
No.
No?
I can neither confirm or deny that that even happened in Saskatoon at Griffiths Field that night.
It is a grainy video. I'll give you that.
Let's just get to that Vanier Cup. Jim Mullins coming up right now with another Vanier Cup feature. You are watching Krown Countdown U. It didn't happen in Saskatoon.
Here's where you can catch CIS action on your television this weekend.
It was all Davids and no Goliaths in the 1984 Vanier Cup as the two tiny schools took on each other, with Guelph taking on Mount Allison.
The year is 1984. The Vanier Cup was played between the Mount Allison Mounties and the Guelph Griffins. First title game for either team. Someone's winning their first Vanier today. Guelph throws the first punch. Quarterback Ryan Waters drops back, testing the waters with the deep ball. Perry Cece with the grab. His first catch of the day is an 89-yard bomb and the first score. Griffith's next possession, cut short by Scott Cameron in the interception. Mounties hit back with a field goal. In the third, Guelph's Mark Hurst to punt, bobbles the snap, and practically pitches it to Scott Cameron. Mounties take the lead off this Terry Baker field goal. But in the fourth, the Griffiths take flight. Waters going back to CC, deep ball. Now you see it, now you don't. Spectacular grab, Guelph ties the game. The last play of the game, it's Jed Tommy from 1 yard out, icing the game for Guelph. That's it, 22-13 final. Guelph gets his first Vanier. Perry Cece takes the Ted Morris. Little tidbit, this is Guelph's only Vanier appearance and win. They're the only team with a perfect record in Vanier Cups.
All right, welcome back to Krown Countdown U. It's time again for the roundtable portion. We welcome in the man that signs our text, Jim Mullen, on the far side of the table. There you go, get ready. And we have Gord Randall, former UBC Thunderbird and Queen's Gale in the middle. And joining us live from California IA and Yahoo Sports writer, Andrew Buchholz. Andrew, how you doing?
Pretty good. Thanks a lot for having me, guys.
Yeah, always a pleasure, buddy. We're going to start things out with you, actually. Let's talk strength of conferences. Which one stands out in your mind?
Yeah, I think the OUA has the best overall strength. I think if you look at that grouping of top OUA teams, there's a lot of pretty good programs in there. I'm not sure any of them match up with a Calgary or a Laval for consistency, but I think if you look at McMaster, at Western, at Guelph, I think those are three teams that can compete with they're better than the top three in any other conference.
Let's go to Gord.
I got to take the RSEQ, and it's not just because of the big boy in Laval, but you're starting to see Concordia push their way back into relevancy here in the RSEQ this year. Sherbrooke's still a solid squad, and the University of Montreal, Andrew, you say the top tier of the OUA would be better than any other conference in your opinion. I'd take Montreal over McMaster, over Guelph, and over Western as well. So I just think that there's better ball being played out there in the RSEQ, particularly by those French language schools that don't lose that top talent to the United States like we do in English-speaking Canada.
Jim.
I think if you take those top 6 teams in the Canada West and match them against the top 6 teams in the OUA, you've got a pretty healthy competition, and they match up pretty well, but I'd still give the edge right now to the Canada West. I think there's better quarterbacking in the Canada West as well.
All right, Gord, let's talk milepost games here. Which team has played a game in recent memory that stands out and shows that they can compete at the next level?
Well, we were talking about this before we got on camera, and there's a few choices to be had out there, but I got to go with the Panda game for Carleton. And this is a program that there was a lot of buzz around them when they first came in. They've got a lot of funding behind them, and they have a pretty rich history, but they've been off for a while. And to come back to prominence as quickly as they have, and they won again this weekend against Windsor, they're right back in the playoff picture in the OUA. And I think that, especially in a rivalry game like that, is just a great way to emphasize, hey, we're back.
Andrew Buchholz, what do you think?
For me, it's the Guelph Griffins and their wild win this week over Western. I think Guelph's a team that's been building for the last couple of years. I really like what Stu Lane is doing there as the head coach. And I think this is a game that they're going to look back on as we've arrived in the really top tier of OUA programs. We've seen promise from them before that they haven't been able to sustain, but I think maybe it's different this time. I think they'll hang on for a few years and be very good.
All right, Jim.
Well, I think I'm going to go a little negative here, folks. I'm going to take a look at Saskatchewan going in the wrong direction after their loss to the Manitoba Bisons. This might be a game that you take a look at in a year or two and see this is when things really started to come apart in Saskatchewan. They had 2 weeks to prepare for this game against the Manitoba Bisons, and it was one of their worst performances in recent memory, and that goes back a long, long way. They were unprepared, they were rudderless, and the start that the Saskatchewan Huskies had, where they were fortunate in a couple of games to come out with wins, has now melted. And there's a good chance here that a big statement game could be coming up for the Alberta Golden Bears as they roll into Saskatchewan. And if Alberta scores a win there, it's a statement game for them, and it's another statement game in the wrong direction for the Saskatchewan Huskies.
All right, let's go to the other side of the country, and Jim, we're going to start with you once more. Mount Allison has a perfect record, but how much can we emphasize perfection in the AUS? Are they for real?
Well, they've got an outstanding defense statistically, 7.7 points per game given up. I mean, that is stellar. You take a look at the amount of turnovers that they produce, 12 interceptions, 13 fumbles that they've stirred up. Yeah, it all looks good, but who have they played? They've got a list of cupcakes that they've played. St. Mary's is a team that is at the low end right across the board. They're averaging only 6 points per game. Are you kidding me? Only 3 touchdowns throughout the course of the year. You take a look at Bishops, the one game that they played in the crossover. Bishops lost 9 starters, including a Heck Creighton Award winner and the leading receiver in the CIS the previous year. In addition to that, they lost another 10 seniors, so Bishops was a team that's gutted. And then you take a look at the other 2 teams in the AUS with St. FX and Acadia, who are below that number 20 line nationally when it comes to offense. The average offense in terms of what those offenses have done in that Mount A schedule average 24th out of 27 teams in the nation. Now, that's not saying that Mount A can't prove something in a bowl game if they make it to there, because they get to host, and they get to host on that quagmire at Macaulay Field that could slow a lot of those quick teams in the OUA down.
Yeah, agreed. Andrew, to you.
I think Mount A is for real. I think what's notable about them is earlier this year on this very show, we were talking about how there might be more parity in the AUS than anywhere else. It hasn't worked out that way. It's worked out with Mount Allison dominating that conference, and I think they've shown they're a very good team. Whether that's going to translate into anything in the bowl results or not, we'll find out, but that's a very small sample size. I think looking at Mount Allison, what they've done this year, particularly on defense and particularly defending the run, I think they're a legit top 10 team.
Mr. Gord Randall, your thoughts?
I got to side with Andrew on this one. I hate penalizing teams for lack of a strength of schedule. They can't choose their opponents, and particularly in the Atlantic Conference, as we know, it's pretty slim pickings. And drawing that crossover game against Bishops this year is a great draw for them. There's no defending their strength of schedule, but I hate penalizing a team that has not lost because we don't think the teams they've played are very good. It's just like the Boise State, the Marshall argument, the ECU this year in the States. Just because they don't have that strength of schedule, they still haven't lost. So why do we penalize them for that? The problem is that we're not going to be able to see them tested until we get to a national semifinal, and then there's so much on the line that everything goes out the window anyway.
Andrew, we're going to go to you. Quick hits, 30 seconds or less. What would you like to see talked about in the CIS?
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to Dame Coach and the Montreal Carabines. I think they're a very good school. You guys hit on it a little earlier. They're the number 2 team in Quebec. They've consistently been the number 2 team in Quebec. And I think they fit in right with the top of the OUA, the top of Canada West. We just don't really see it much because they're playing in a conference that's dominated by Laval. But I think you really have to admire what they've done over the last few years in building a consistent contender.
Jim, your quick hit.
It's the game coming up between Concordia and Sherbrooke. I think Sherbrooke has an opportunity to reassert themselves in the RSEQ as that unofficial number 3 team. We know that Concordia has been on quite a run as of late, but you know, when the Vert-Or took on Montreal, they lost only by a score of 22-16, and they were driving on the final drive. They put a 10-play drive together with 1:07 left. They were in territory, but they couldn't finish off a drive. This is an opportunity after Sherbrooke's been kind of in the muck for the last year and a half to pull themselves out of it and stage somewhat of a rally in the playoffs.
All right, Gord, 30 seconds or less. Take us home.
2 quick things. One, will the real Manitoba Bisons please stand up? This team has been defined by uneven performances for the last couple of seasons now. It's a talent-laden team. It's a senior-laden team. It's got one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I think it's got the best shot to knock off Calgary in the Canada West, but you never know week in, week out. Good Lord, never put money on these guys. You have no idea what you're going to get from the Manitoba Bisons. So I would love, for their sake, if they could put together a couple consistent performances here. And finally, my last quick shout out. I'm sure Andrew's feeling the same way, but looked like a great homecoming at Queens. Good to see it back. It's good for football.
Yeah, absolutely. For all of us here at Krown Countdown U and Friends, I'm Ryan Sullivan. For Jim Mullen, Gord Randall, Andrew Buckholtz, and Andrew Wadden. We'll see you next time, and stay tuned for your CIS Top 10.
Number 10. Number 9. Number 8. Number 7. Number 6. Number 4. Number 3. Number 2. And number 1. Thanks for watching Krown Countdown U. Now, let's get out to the game.
Dusick & Barlow Insurance Brokers Limited, proud to bring you coverage of the University of Regina Rams.